when she smiles. Doo-doo-doo, how many days in a year? No.
I've never heard this song before. This is all going in.
Hi, I'm Kayla.
And I'm Pete, and welcome to How I Hobby.
We're two pals and hobby obsessives with over 100 hobbies between us.
And we're always on the lookout for more.
Join us as we talk about all of our hobbies.
And talk to people we know about their really cool hobbies.
Welcome to How I Hobby. In today's episode, we've got a great interview with Matt Callaghan, whose hobby scales new heights. But first, Pete, tell us, how do you hobby?
I'll tell you how I hobby. Archery.
Cool!
Yeah.
Like Robin Hood.
Yes, and I wear the tights.
Amazing. Yeah. How did you get into archery? That's something like I did as a child.
It's one of those hobbies that I wanted to try for ages, just because it looks really cool. That's the only reason. And then I had no experience with anything like this. I went along to a local archery club, Laleham Archery Club.
Shout out to Laleham.
So we'll tag you in on Instagram. So went along. They were so friendly. They had a beginner's course that I did. They give you a club ball that you can start with, and then away you go. It's fantastic. There's so many of these, clubs all over the country. Some suffered a little bit during COVID, obviously, but some of them are bouncing back, which is good. So you can find your local one, or quite often, if you've got a village fair or something like that's going on, these places will have what they call a have a go, where they just have a stall up and you can go up and just shoot some stuff at them.
Are you shooting these things into a barrel of hay? What is this bullseye against?
So it's the big target, it's called a boss.
Okay.
And it's like a big round, hay disc.
Yeah.
That stops the arrow, hopefully.
Yeah.
And you shoot six arrows per end, they call it. Shoot 6 arrows, and then you get 10 to 1 points, depending on how close to the goal, to the bullseye you are.
Yeah.
And then you count up the number of points you got, and then you're very disappointed, and you go back and you try it again.
I love this. So this is if darts are for ants, then archery is for giants.
I don't know where to start with that.
If you think about it logically, right?
Yeah.
Same bullseye, but different size.
Just different size projectile.
Yeah. What types of people have you met through archery?
I mean, all sorts. There's some very, very sporty types, and there's sort of quiet, nerdy types, and just people, I don't know, all sorts. Because I think what it does is it has this in common with a lot of different hobbies that we've been talking about over the course of the series. It has this meditative aspect to it.
Yeah.
So when you're just aiming at this target, all you're doing is you're concentrating on your form. You're hoping that the arrow goes, where you want it to go. You're thinking about that. Once you've shot it, you're thinking about what the next arrow is going to do, and you're not worried about anything else. It really is a very meditative thing to do.
Cool.
So you get all sorts of people trying it for that reason, as well as people who are into, the more sort of sporty type things, because it's not particularly athletic, but still, hunting people, not so much in this country.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking, because I've done clay pigeon shooting before, which is another hobby we could talk about. Yeah. But it's a similar thing of aiming, but the difference is with archery, what you're trying to shoot is stationary versus clay pigeon shooting. This clay pigeon is in motion.
Yes. It's funny, there's different types of archery as well that they do. There is target archery, where you've got, you're shooting at a target, obviously.
Yep.
Then there's field archery, where you are, rather than just being on a flat field with a set distance away, you're going around a course, maybe you're in a forest and there's hills and stuff like that, and all of a sudden, there's a target up there and you've just got to shoot up in that direction or something like that. Then there's 3D archery, which some people do in this country, which is similar to field archery. You're going around cross country, and then there is a fiberglass model of a deer.
Oh my God, that's
with a target
cool.
on it, and you have to shoot at this thing. I'm not interested in that, but maybe that's because I'm vegetarian.
I love that. That's so cool, Pete. That was amazing.
Thank
archery,
you.
what a cool hobby! And with that, on to our episode. Matt Callaghan is an engineer who sits at a desk all day creating software tools. He's created cool tech for one of Britain's most loved foldable bike brands. In the evenings, he does improv and really whatever else will keep him away from his computer. Matt, tell us, how do you hobby?
Well, I am a climber.
Cool!
Fantastic!
That's wicked! Matt, tell us, what does it mean to be a climber and how did you get into it?
What it means to be a climber to me is that means that I am trying to find some time every week to go to a climbing centre, of which there's loads in London, and do some bouldering, or there might be top roping or lead climbing, one of those things. Okay. And yeah, it's just a fun way to chill out.
Amazing.
Right, so I know nothing. I know that you do. You know a bit of rock climbing.
That's exactly
I know
what
nothing,
I was going to say.
So I want to know, what's bouldering?
Yeah.
Top roping?
And lead climbing.
And
Please
lead
explain
climbing. Yeah, what are
it.
they? What are the differences?
Okay, so bouldering is climbing. By the way, let me just add this little caveat that I am just a not pro at all. So this is just what I'm sort of picking
This is
up
what it's
along
all
the way.
about.
Okay, you're right. Well, bouldering is essentially climbing without ropes, and you're maybe climbing maybe 4 or 5 meters at the most. The moves are kind of a bit more dynamic than other types of climbing, and sort of so you'll go into these centers. There's a big wide space, lots of mats everywhere, and people climbing to their heart's content.
So bouldering, few meters high,
no
ropes.
Yeah.
Just and quite dynamic.
And you look like a monkey. Yeah. It's like really cool. Yeah.
Chimp climbing. Yeah. Fantastic. Love it.
So that's bouldering.
That's bouldering. Then there's top roping.
Top roping is you're spread through sort of an anchor point at the top.
Okay.
And there's 2 of you that are climbing this thing. So you work in pairs. There's someone who's actually doing the climbing. Mm-hmm. So both pairs have got a harness on this time as opposed to just, shorts, t-shirt. Yeah. So you both got harness. One person is belaying, one person is climbing, and you've got the rope is between you both. Okay. So the person who's belaying is taking in the slack of
they're on the ground.
The rope as you climb
taking
up.
The slack, right? Okay, yeah.
Yep. And the climber is going up and being supported. Well, not supported, but if you were to fall, or you're getting caught by this rope all the time.
You'd fall out. You wouldn't plummet to the ground.
Yeah, so that's top rope.
So that's top rope.
There's a rope, it's connected at the top, and there's someone on the ground making sure that you're okay.
To winch you up,
correct.
Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my kind of climbing.
Yeah.
The third one is, well, it's really more sport climbing, but in centres, I think it's more typically called leading or lead climbing, where the idea being that you are, again, there's a pair of you on the bottom, and there's bolt holds in the wall as you go up, and you clip your rope through these points, and then you continue to climb up. So if you were to fall, rather than being caught by the rope immediately that's above you, you're falling as far as the last point you clipped on, plus the distance you went past it.
So that's the one that I've seen most in like films and that.
That's also arguably the most difficult, which is the one that Matt did in Wales not very long ago.
Well, very impressive. Yeah. I've seen Cliffhanger, and let me tell you, that first scene is tense. Rest of the film, absolute trash, but that first scene's great.
Yeah, that's the scariest one for me, and I'm just getting into now. I've been comfortably bouldering for a few years, and now I'm trying to push myself, or rather, I'm getting dragged out of my comfort zone by friends into climbing higher and scarier things.
Yeah,
comfortably bouldering. That's definitely the title of this episode. I love it. Comfortably bouldering.
Okay, so Matt, you've talked us through the 3 types of climbing / bouldering. How did you get into this in the first place?
In Brighton, an ex-housemate of mine, just dragged me along to a few climbing sessions. But basically, that's all it took. It's a very addictive kind of a sport, I think, because I think there's something about climbing that's very primal. So when you climb to the top, there's a real sort of sense of achievement. There's a logic part of it where you're puzzling things out, especially when you're just starting. I didn't have much kind of top half body strength at all, and so you kind of come away from each of these sessions and you're feeling completely exhausted, and your arms feel like wood for days. But you come back the week later, and things you couldn't climb on day 1, you can climb on day 7, and so you feel like, oh, I'm definitely making progress each time I go.
So when you're out and about, just in the in normal life, do you look at stuff and think, I could climb that, and try and figure out how you could do it?
Yeah, nowadays you do more. It's weird. It's like going back to being a kid. I'm like much more into the idea of tree climbing than I have been, in like 25 years.
So you're in London.
Yeah.
Which London landmark would you like to scale?
The Shard, Buckingham Palace.
Sure. Well, there is people that do that crazy kind of, well, for a start, illegal free soloing. So I don't know if you've heard about it, but
No.
there's a guy who's famous in France for doing this, who will just scale these famous landmarks and either make it to the top and get caught by the police, or get caught by the police halfway up these buildings. The highest thing I've climbed is 20 meters. So if there was something interesting 20 meters or so high,
we need to find it.
What is that Nelson's Column that's in Trafalgar Square? Surely that's
the first third of Nelson's Column.
Yeah,
let's see.
That's cool.
How tall is Nelson's Column? Bear with me. This is great radio. Here we go.
While you Google that, I'm going to ask the next question.
Go for it.
Okay, Matt. So we kind of heard some of the things that you like about your hobby, but what would you say is your favorite thing about your hobby?
It's a really good way to wind down and completely switch off from anything that's gone on in the day. Because, you can't be focusing on work stresses and trying to keep on the wall at the same time. So it's a really good way to switch off, which is, I find harder to do now because I work from home mostly. So it's harder to just switch off because I'm just immediately power down the computer and you're still in that same headspace. But now, so it's a real plus to be able to go to a climbing center. And as soon as you start climbing, then you really can't be thinking about work at all.
I should say, by the way, to the people who can't see this, Matt is currently suspended from his ceiling. He's upside down in his room. It's very impressive. Yeah. He's just gripping on by his toes like a bat.
Yeah. Well, training's part of it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Matt, what would you say, your whole fam in Ashford, what do they think about your hobby?
I've tried to get them into it, to varying degrees of success. I think my parents are a bit sort of, when I go and tell my parents, for example, that I'm going to Wales and I'm not quite sure what I'm doing and stuff like this, I think they're just like, please come back. But my brother and sister, I've both taken climbing. I think they're into it.
Yeah.
But it's much easier to do in London, where they're not, because there's climbing centres everywhere.
Yeah. Matt, you've been to Wales. You've climbed in London. Where is the best place in the world to climb?
Oh, well, of those two places, I would say I think I'm getting into outside climbing more and more, although I've done very little. Fontainebleau is one place I've climbed, which is outside of Paris, and that's an amazing place to go bouldering.
I thought that was a cheese.
No, but it's also where there's...
It may well be.
No, it's also where the world's leading MBA program is in Fontainebleau.
Really? So you can do MBA, you can go rock climbing, and you can eat cheese.
And you can eat a variety of cheese. So Fontainebleau is the best place in the world to go bouldering.
Well, I don't know, but
we'll get letters if you say
it's my favorite place. It's
Right.
my
It's your favorite. Okay.
It's my favorite place to go bouldering so far. Yeah, because you're outside. Climbing outside is just, there's something extra to it. It's just a lot more
wonderful,
enjoyable, really.
So as well as the bouldering and top roping and then outside climbing and things like that, is there any other hobby that you would want to do moving on from this? Maybe something completely different, or maybe would this segue into parkour or something like that?
It does get into that territory where, you can easily get a bit crazy with it. I think because what I'm finding, which I like, is you just get more and more strength and probably more and more sort of confidence in your own body to be able to do these kind of things. And I'm sure that's what leads to, doing crazy things like parkour. One thing that's a bit of a barrier for me is heights. And so that's why I'm slowly getting to the sort of the lead climbing, the sort of climbing 20 meter plus things. That's I guess where I'm going with this. I'm actually thinking about getting into ceramics. I've been watching.
Of course. Improv, climbing, ceramics.
Yeah, it seems like a very kind of a peaceful, creative one. Very far away from everything else I've done, which is probably one reason to do it. I don't do too much that's like creative in an artistic sense and making tangible things. And so that's, I think, and time and money. I think I'm going to plan to do it at the end of this year. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we'll get you on for the next series.
Matt Callaghan, tell us, what has your hobby of climbing taught you about yourself or life?
I can push myself further in terms of physical sense. I'm definitely getting to a point now where, especially when you do big climbs or climb with a group of people that push you beyond your limits, because I was never a really sporty kid who would really push myself at school in that sense. And so finding it later in life is nice to know that I've got the capacity to push myself a bit further. Like when you're right in if you're like halfway through a climb and you suddenly get extremely scared that you think you're going to fall to your doom, or realize that you think that I really don't have anything left in the tank, but you overcome that feeling and get to the top. That's a nice kind of lesson learned. It's reinforcing to realize you've got a bit more in you or a bit more control. So that's probably the biggest takeaway.
Fantastic.
That's so cool.
That's really great. So Matt, you've got 30 seconds to convince people to try your hobby. Come on, sell it to us. 30 seconds.
Convince Pete. You have 30 seconds to convince Pete to try your hobby.
He's lazy with no upper body strength either. Yeah. Go on, let's give it a go. 30 seconds.
Okay,
go.
Pete. So it wasn't too long ago that I was probably exactly in your position, or I'm not going to pretend like I was in your position, but I was 5 or 6 years ago. I was not doing anything remotely sporty. Didn't consider myself sporty in any sense, really. And going climbing, there's a really nice bunch of people in every one of these centers I've been to. You can get started. It's very there's no sort of barrier to access. It's starts very simple. There's a lovely bunch of people who either teach you or people who go there regularly are more than happy to come along and help you. It's a really social it can be very chilled out. You can push yourself. It's great for people coming from it a lot of different ways. It's a great way to wind down, and you can come away to kind of having chilled out. In months or weeks later, you can feel stronger,
Wow.
without having really done much kind of gym work.
Yeah.
So
that almost sounds like you're selling us supplements. That was great.
That's next. Okay, fantastic. Oh, God.
Cool. That was awesome. Thank you.
Fantastic stuff. Yes.
That was really cool. Matt, that was wicked. Thank you so much for sharing your love of climbing. Definitely hear you. And I think this is interesting about loads of the other people we've been chatting to on the podcast about using their hobby as a vehicle by which it helps them de-stress and helps them switch off and wind down. And I really loved, definitely hear the social element of it. But what I really liked about it is that this hobby has helped you kind of push your own mental abilities or perceptions of your own ability, which is that's a really rewarding thing to get out of a hobby.
Yeah, that you can do things that you didn't realize that you could. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
all right.
Cool.
Fantastic. Before we go, by the way, this is something to aim for, but Nelson's column is 51 meters high, so that's
not impossible then.
Not impossible. Nothing's impossible. A guy did Nelson's column on Blue Peter. You've seen that video, you must have.
I haven't. But I'm going to go find it now.
Was it John Noakes? Somebody Noakes? I can't remember.
I'm not from here. I don't know.
Somebody write in.
Yeah.
At us, at howihobby on Instagram. Okay. Tell us, who is it who climbed on Blue Peter, climbed a thing.
Maybe that's Matt's 2024 plan.
Definitely. Climb Nelson's column, get arrested.
Cool. Well, thanks a bunch. That was so fun. Thanks so much for coming. We hope you had a blast.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It's been really fun chatting about climbing with you guys.
Fantastic.
Cool. Okay.
All right.
Toodles.
Bye. Okay, that was our interview with Matt Callaghan. We had a blast. Hope you did too.
But before we go, we want to share this week's celebrity hobby. Drum roll.
Did you know Rosario Dawson, massive Trekkie?
Really?
She speaks Klingon on set and all sorts.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And that's a wrap.
I've been Pete.
And I've been Kayla.
Rate and review us wherever you get our podcasts. It makes us very much easier to find.
And follow us on Instagram at howihobby.
See you next time.
Toodles!
How I Hobby was written and produced by Kayla Lean and Pete Falconer, with music by Pete Falconer, artwork by Laura Walsh, and animation by Kayla Lean. If you'd like to be featured on the pod, find us on Instagram or email us at howihobby@gmail.com.